Good morning, everybody. My name is Simon Hamilton. I'm the Chief Executive of Belfast Chamber, and you're all very welcome to our event this morning, which is entitled Belfast, a University City. Belfast is now a two-university city, and with Ulster University opening the doors of its new campus in the north side of Belfast City Centre, Belfast is now firmly establishing itself as a two-university city, and that's something that is hugely significant for the whole city and particularly for the city's economy. What we're hoping to do over the next hour is to explore the existing impact of both universities on the Belfast and wider regional economy, and also what their plans and vision for the future and the contribution that both Queen's University and Ulster University are going to make to the Belfast and Northern Ireland economy. Belfast Chamber is absolutely delighted that we are able to do that with the help of the two Vice Chancellors. We're really pleased to be joined by Professor Ian Greer, the Vice Chancellor at Queen's University Belfast, and by Professor Ian Paul Bartholomew, the Vice Chancellor at Ulster University. Ian and Paul are very welcome to our event today. We're also going to try to show the wider impact on the city's economy. We're also joined by Lynn Harris, who's a director at law firm Herbert Smith Freehills, and Marie Doyle, who is a director at consultancy firm Deloitte. We're going to show talk about that linkage between the universities and industry across our city. So I want to move firstly to our first Vice Chancellor, who's going to tell us about what his university is doing in terms of its contribution to the Belfast and Northern Ireland economy. I'm very, very pleased to be able to hand over to Professor Ian Greer, Vice Chancellor at Queen's. Ian, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. It's really good to be here for today's event, albeit virtually. It's nonetheless a great pleasure to talk to this particular group because of the importance of the universities to the city, and indeed the importance of the city to the two universities. So the history, development and success of Belfast and Queen's are of course intertwined. Indeed, it's difficult to imagine Belfast without Queen's, and I think that no one would argue that Belfast is a university city, and that's now being enhanced further by the new campus with Ulster University. We're very proud of the role that we've played in Belfast history. We've recently marked our 175th anniversary since the foundation of the Queen's Colleges in Belfast, Cork and Galway. And we still work with our partner universities across the island of Ireland. We're very proud of the role that we currently play, both in society and the economy. We contribute around 1.9 billion of economic impact to the economy, a benefit to cost ratio of more than 6:1. We're one of the city's largest employers with 4,200 staff. That's an increase of over 15% in the last 5 years. We've got a superb track record of innovation and enterprise where we can turn our research and development into true economic impact. So we're ranked as one of the leading entrepreneurial universities in the UK. In fact, we're currently first, have been in 2 successive years in the entrepreneurial league table rankings for UK universities, beating Cambridge into second place on both occasions. We also have created a number of new jobs in our spin-out companies, and between 2014 and 2020, almost 13,000 high-value new jobs in a knowledge economy were created by the university's spin-out activities. And indeed, half of our public companies in Northern Ireland have come from Queen's, like KNOS or Fusion Antibodies. So research is important, and there's a great return on investment there too, because for every £1 million invested in research, there's an additional 3.9 million of economic impact within the economy. And it's not just that entrepreneurial spirit that's important. We also are very strong in working with business and industry, and we do that through knowledge transfer partnerships, where you take a business problem, if you will, and a potential university solution, and you create a project between the organisations to solve it. And we're currently the UK leader in these projects. We've currently a portfolio of, I think, 107 or so in the last 5 years, worth almost £20 million of impact, and around 45 of these are in the Greater Belfast area. And of course, I've talked about innovation, but we mustn't forget skills, because these drive the economy. And in particular, something I'd like to call out is the response that we made to COVID, where many people were displaced or furloughed from their jobs. And we very quickly, within a matter of weeks, set up a number of postgraduate certificates to reskill people. That was supported by DEFI, but we created courses in areas like software development, where people who had no previous experience of that sector could get enough training to get an entry-level job in a new sector. Looking at the cultural impact, we've got 25,000 students. We've got over 3,500 international students from around the world coming this year. We really are making Belfast a global city, putting it on the global stage. And that diversity is really important, not just because we're bringing international people here, but because we are giving people in Northern Ireland exposure to the rest of the world, seeing that multicultural impact here in the city. So we take our role as a civic university very seriously. We do work with local communities. For example, we run homework clubs in various areas. We're also a patron of the Greater Shankill Children and Young People's Action Zone, which has co-created a number of important interventions, including providing tech support for home learning through lockdown for pupils in primary schools, or an archaeological and local history project that involved our staff, our students, and the Shankill community. We can also change society through some of our world-leading research. For example, the work in shared education that brings communities together, our work in COVID, helping respond to the pandemic, whether it's clinical trials to look at vaccines or ways to offer respiratory support, or indeed provide testing. And recently, I'm sure you've seen some of our experts in the press talking about the issues around Brexit. One of our standout areas of research is ESIT and CSIT, our telecommunications initiatives down in the harbour. That really is world leading and has been instrumental in attracting substantial foreign direct investment and creating a number of jobs, again, most of which in the Belfast area. Now, looking to the future and post-COVID, the universities are both critical, we believe, to the social and economic recovery, not just in areas like the skills initiatives that I told you about, but also in continuing to prepare graduates for tomorrow's industry, a new knowledge economy, an exciting economy with more and better paid jobs. And we do that through that combination of not just the skills, but the innovation. That new knowledge we know can drive substantial change in our society and our economy, and we believe can be driven a great deal by the work of the two universities. Now, we can't do that on our own. A key issue for us is partnership. Ulster and Queen's already work together in a number of projects, including the Belfast City deal and some Strengthened Places bids. And I believe that close alliance is really important. What we want to achieve here is a quadruple helix, if you will, of university, business, community, government, all working together to create a virtuous cycle of success. As I've said, we've worked with Ulster very closely in the City deal, a deal that will bring substantial new jobs and where the universities are leading the innovation piece. That innovation is funded by over 220 million of investment from Treasury. We're waiting for final sign-off, but it will really drive things forward in areas like advanced manufacturing. And we had a meeting yesterday in the City to drive that further forward. Health research, data science, and the creative industries. And although Ulster's leading the piece in creative industries, Queen's has independently, but in a complementary way, created a media lab with an investment of 2.5 million to bring our assets together to support that work that Ulster is leading. So we can complement each other as we go forward. I mentioned the Strengthened Places bids. These are really important. You might argue they're important for levelling up the UK, not just because they bring investment to Belfast, but they also bring linkages, because I believe that levelling up means linking up across the UK economy. We can't do everything at the level we'd like to do it here in Northern Ireland. We can't be expert in everything, but we can create an ecosystem that involves other parts of the UK or indeed other parts of this island or even internationally to create the right expertise to deliver what we're trying to do. So these two Strengthened Places bids cross both universities. One is about zero carbon sea travel with Artemis, and the other is about smart nanofabrication with Seagate. So really important initiatives which together are worth almost £100 million of investment here. I've mentioned to you that skills are really important. And one particular area I'd like to flag up with you is another partnership, not just between Ulster and Queen's, but across the tertiary education sector. In Northern Ireland, we're challenged because we lose a large number of our students to GB for their tertiary education, around 30% in fact. And I believe we've got to maximally use the assets that we've got, and these assets extend across further education and higher education. So in the last few months, we've been working together with FE to look at how we might start to make our courses stack up. For example, you start your education in Belfast Met, you move to Queen's or Ulster, or even if you come to a university like Queen's, you find it's not for you, why can't you then transfer into a course in one of the regional colleges? So we believe that by working together in tertiary education, we can do something really special that allows greater mobility between institutions and indeed greater social mobility while delivering the best possible opportunities for young people so they don't have to leave this island for their education. On that point, I'd like just to briefly mention our widening participation work. Like Ulster, we're very proud of what we do in this area, and some 31% of our applicants this year come from the most disadvantaged socioeconomic quintiles in Northern Ireland. We're also very proud of our Pathway Opportunity programme. That's a special programme that takes able pupils in the last year of post-primary school, supports them, gives them a taster of what it's like at university, let them stay in our halls of residence, let them see what it's like on campus. We give them discounted grades for entry, and once they come, we give them £1,000 a year for the whole of their course, all raised through philanthropy. When I started, we had 12 students in 2018. This year, we've exceeded 150 on that programme, including some for the first time going into medicine and dentistry, and 50 going to other universities across the UK. So that's a real success, and we believe that is something that we'd like to build on to make a difference. So just to conclude, our new strategy, which we've recently launched, is really important for the future, but it really heralds the future that I've discussed already, an impact on skills, an impact on research and innovation that will drive industrial change in Belfast, really deliver on that new economy, and really deliver a significant change to the benefit of all in our society. But we can only do it by working in partnership. And that's why meetings like this are so critically important to us, where the universities can come together with business, with industry, with the greater society, and see what we can do to make a difference by working together in a strong partnership. I'll pause there, Simon, but later on, of course, I'll be delighted to take any questions or discuss any points in more detail.
Ian, thank you very much for that. It's really good to be reminded of some of the really world-class things that the Queens are already doing, but also to get that sense of some things that people may be not as familiar with, and also that vision for the future. So, Ian, thank you very much for that. I'm very pleased to go to Paul Bartholomew. Paul is the Vice Chancellor at Ulster University, and he is likewise going to give us a sense of what Ulster, particularly its new campus here in the heart of Belfast, is delivering for the city and region's economy, and again, what role the university is going to play in the further development of our economy. So, and just before I do hand over to Paul, and Ian mentioned about questions at the end, there's a question and answer function on your screen. So if people want to hear anything that they piques their interest or want to hear a little bit more about, or ask any of our participants, please put a question into Q&A box, and we'll do our best to touch on as many of them as we can later on. Paul, over to you.
Thanks very much, Simon, and thank you, Ian, for that introduction. It's important, some of the things that Ian has said there about how the universities work together. We both understand that businesses appreciate the way in which the universities work together. Ian and I and our colleagues across the universities work together fantastically well. I think we understand one another's context. We understand the context of Northern Ireland and indeed Belfast as part of that. And I think our collaboration and ongoing collaboration across a range of things is a real asset to this place. I'm just now going to continue through these slides, and it would be remiss of me not to kind of talk about the place in which we enact our business for Ulster University, that isn't just about Belfast. We're a regional university, and like Queen's, we have 25,000 students, but that's actually across four campuses in Northern Ireland. And colleagues will know that there's a specific socio-political context for each of those campuses. And indeed, I think that has quite kind of a lot of ramifications for the discourse across the piece. But critically, as far as Ulster University, we are one university serving the region through multiple campuses. There's a great deal of complementarity and a great deal of intentionality in terms of what we're doing as one university. And it's a platform, I believe, through Ulster University for the entire region to succeed, and Belfast is central to that. I just want to talk about that Ulster University in the context of the wider region a little bit and give you a context about the sort of economic activity that we have. As Ian has said, universities are economic engines for Northern Ireland, and I think Northern Ireland benefits from having excellent institutions with an enormous amount of impact. And through our teaching, research, innovation, and indeed as employers, and the multiplier effect that has with our staff in the economy. The economic impact across Northern Ireland is just around 1.4 billion. Belfast and Jordanstown comes in about 885 million, and you'll see the Coleraine and the McGee figures for us. I think the next figure is one that I'm kind of, I think is fantastic in relation to the institution. The benefit to cost ratio of Ulster University is estimated to be 7 to 1, and that compares to a sector average for even research intensive institutions of 5.5 to 1. That speaks both to our effectiveness and efficiency that we have as an institution, and some of those benefits that we have that extend across the entire region. So the way that's broken down, you'll see that the impact of teaching learning is about 800 million, research about 150 million, and then you'll see the export values and the direct and indirect and induced impacts. So it's considerable businesses that you have here, but we are catalysts and multipliers of all of those things that businesses do. And as Ian said more than once, we couldn't do it without you. In terms of skills, the skills pipeline, as Ian says, is absolutely the engine that drives the economy. 90% of Ulster graduates are working, studying, or a combination of both at that census point that we now have of 15 months after graduation. Critically, I think, for Ulster, for those in employment, a significant majority are in employment within Northern Ireland. And I think the investment that we see within the universities, it's really important that we see that those people can contribute to the economy here. And the point that Ian made in terms of, every year about a third of the students go over the water, 2/3 of those don't come back. But we do know if we do keep them here, that they stay here and contribute to the economy. And given that businesses have that opportunity to work with the universities to shape the curricula and the programs that we have, being able to kind of tailor that skill base for Northern Ireland, there's a great opportunity to join those up. And I think that the stuff that Ian's spoken about in terms of our work in supporting the entire tertiary education sector is absolutely critical in ensuring that there are those pathways and escalators for people to develop skills. And progressively, we've seen, and like Queen's, Ulster have participated in those COVID projects sponsored by DFE around reskilling. I think that going forwards, that reskilling piece will be really important, and I'll probably say something a little bit about that as we go through. Accordingly, as far as business is concerned, employability is at the heart of the student experience, and it ensures that learners are equipped with skills and knowledge to excel in professional life. We know the value of placements, and of course those placements can only be delivered through collaboration with those partners. And we've got over 2,000 students working within those placements every year. In terms of an employability survey that's just been done with feedback from employers, that I think this just broke yesterday. The key findings we find from that is that employers feel that 38% stated that there's an undersupply of graduate skills, and that's a reasonably large number. And I think that demonstrates that there's still appetite for having more of those skills to drive those businesses. And we are absolutely committed to work with businesses to deliver for you as businesses, but also for Northern Ireland as a region, and Belfast as a critical part within that. In terms of the feedback that we get from what can universities do better, I think it's really interesting if you look at the top two there. There is a sense there that the curriculum that we develop is only as important as the other kind of non-curricular activities and the roundness of the person that we develop. And I think that that's something we've understood for some time, but it's interesting that employers feel that they are equally important, not just the curriculum that we teach in terms of subject knowledge, but actually how we equip people for the world of work and their communications and problem-based skills, and indeed of all those widening development things that universities do for students. I think that's critically important for a number of reasons. Here we are in Belfast, and I'm sat in a building now, and you see a white wall behind me, but I see St Anne's Cathedral out that way. Here we are as campuses, places to meet, and the reason why universities are so important as campuses within a place, within a space, is that they contribute hugely to those softer development skills that sit outside of the curriculum as people and young people and lifelong learners can meet together and develop as human beings. And it's a transformative experience, which I think does have its roots within being a shared place where people can come and learn as a community. The new Belfast campus, and if you look on that picture there, I'm sat on that kind of lantern piece, and I'm actually sort of about two or three floors up there. And if we could look at that now, you could perhaps see me sat there. It's a hugely significant regeneration project within the city. We're adding in, we always had a presence, or we've had a presence in Belfast for some time, but we're adding 75,000 square meters of campus, and we're going to move 15,000 students and staff from Jordanstown into here. It's a campus that will be open to innovation. Businesses can collaborate, industry can access expertise here, and it's been designed in its place, in its design, the way where the entrances face to link communities together and to be an inviting place for businesses and communities to come and meet. And all those things that I said about the importance of a campus as a place in the learning of our students also relates to how a space can support the collaboration of community members and indeed businesses. As an investment multiplier in terms of the money spent on the campus, it's about a 5 to 1, and we would expect to see over the lifetime of the building that we would see a 5 to 1 return on investment. And there's just a little statistic there, 15,000, that's about the same as moving the population of Armagh into this part of the city. That is absolutely transformative and impactful. In terms of where we are, of course, it's a very big building. It's quite a tall building. It's got a distinctive skyline that mirrors the hills around Belfast. But embedding sustainable transport and that connectivity is key. And we've been working with Department of Infrastructure and Communities and TransLink in relation to that. We've developed a university community benefit framework to ensure that being in this place is transformative for all. And we've got community fellows and a number of research projects like Taking Boys Seriously and so forth to promote social mobility and indeed community cohesion. It's very important for why we are where we are. The building itself has given us an opportunity to support the local community. There's been 97.73 years worth of training, placement, and apprenticeship since construction began through that, and an estimated employment impact through the construction of about 3,784 job years. That's an enormous impact just from building the building before we get into the substantive benefits of being here as a university. And of course, now that we're here, we're seeing hotels, retail, offices, and student accommodation grow up around us. In terms of the articulation with businesses, I'm not going to take you through all those statistics, but there's a considerable percentage of the business job ecosystem that sits on the doorstep of this campus. That's quite important for us because the last bullet point on that slide, it's an opportunity to grow the non-regulated student numbers. So the lifelong learning piece, the reskilling piece that I spoke to earlier, there's tremendous potential for us to do work articulated learning on this campus where people can walk from their workspace onto the campus and do some of that upskilling. And that's really good for Belfast and the economy. It's also good for UU. It allows us to grow non-regulated income, and that's good for the wider region. For Ulster University as a regional university, as we grow income through the asset that this is this campus, we're committed to making sure that that has impact across all of our campuses and supporting the entirety of the region. Just some statistics around this building. I've spoken about the 15,000 students, but you know, we've got, I think, something like 24 different types of glass. There's 606 kilometers of data cable. We've got over 300 learning spaces. 2,900 doors, and that just gives you a sense of the scale of the thing that we are still in the process of building, but I'm already using, as I've suggested this morning. So it's really big undertaking for us. I'm just going to wrap up now and just talk a little bit about the city deals. As Ian says, we've been collaborating on those, and we have a collaboration in advanced manufacturing, which Queen's are leading on. The two that we're leading on in relation to the Screen Media Innovation Lab and the Centre for Digital Health Technology, I'll say a few things about. So we're really excited about the SMIL initiative, the Screen and Media Innovation Lab. That sees us developing a virtual production studio at the harbour that will support some of the major players to continue to undertake that activity that Northern Ireland's become famous for. We've got partners such as Netflix and so forth. And Ulster University is one of the few universities that has the Epic Games Unreal Engine academic partner status, and that underpins some of the technology that allows us to do those virtual productions. And we'll be continuing to do that work in the harbour, and I think it's a really exciting area of work for us, and the spin out potential for businesses is enormous. Last thing to say then is about the CDHT project. That's about digital healthcare technology. We've got another building that we've purchased just over the road from here. We aim through that city deal to be hosting over 140 researchers and companies to look at the role in which technology can have to support healthcare. And just listening to the radio this morning about the need to digitize healthcare to get the efficiencies for the situation that we're in now becomes really important. And you'll see there on the slide that the building over the way that will be regenerated, it's co-located with us here, and it will be an important feature of the work that we have going forwards. So that's me. Thank you very much. Hopefully that's about right on time, and I will stop sharing now. Thanks very much.
Paul, thank you very much. That was, again, equally as exciting as Ian's presentation, not just in terms of what's happening now, but that look into the future, and the university will be contributing to not just that regeneration of Belfast, but that wider economic impact. So thank you for that. I mentioned earlier we're very pleased to also be joined by some industry leaders in our city as well, and what we want to do and explore with them is just what having two world-class universities in Belfast means for their businesses and creation of jobs and the attraction of investment to this part of the world. So first of all, I'm joined by Lynn Harris. Lynn is a director at law firm Herbert Smith Freehills, who are based in the gasworks in Belfast. Lynn, you're very welcome. And you know, perhaps as well as telling folk about a little bit about what Herbert Smith Freehills does in Belfast, you know, one of the things that I know that you have is a formal 5-year partnership with Queen's University, which entered into a few years ago. So maybe you could also tell us a little about that and why the firm, as it grew its presence here in Belfast, thought that strategic partnership with Queen's was so important.
Sure. I suppose I'll start by saying that the academic quality of legal talent in Northern Ireland was one of the key reasons why Herbert Smith Freehills, a global law firm, decided to start a new arm of their global business in Belfast. And that has turned out to be a fantastic choice. And I mean, at the moment, 73% of our law graduate team in our Belfast office are QUB and UU alumni. So we absolutely could not have grown in the way that we have without having that fantastic talent from our universities. In terms of the relationships are quite multifaceted. Simon, you mentioned the 7-year relationship with Queen's. So we very proudly sponsored the Queen's Student Hub in the law faculty. But we've always recognised that there's an opportunity for a business like ours to kind of facilitate mutual development with our universities with a bit of imagination. So in collaboration with Queen's and UU, we've partnered to develop a number of quite key and collaborative initiatives and programmes. So just to give the audience a bit of a taster as to what they look like, those include 11-month fixed-term placements. Those are paid placements with both universities, And quite excitingly, we have a new one on the stocks for 2022 with UU, and that's as part of the Masters in Corporate Law and Computing. With that student, we'll have a placement in our legal technology and e-discovery team, which is something that we're trying to build in Belfast as a transition from law across to tech for our lawyers. So a lot of synergies there. We offer summer internships as well. And we also are very proud to participate in the Queen's Global Skills and Law Pathways programme. And this is around the mutual development piece, really. So it's development workshops for students, but actually our team facilitate those. So there's kind of mutual growth between our employees and then obviously the students as well, along the themes of growth mindset, personal impact, and that's a formal workshop programme. So you know, in summary, I suppose what I would say is that we see the partnership between industry and academia as really very symbiotic. And we see things continuing to evolve so that actually industry and a law firm like ours starts to become part of the curriculum with universities, and actually you know, speaking and kind of trying to influence that a little bit so that the economy is growing, the inward investment is growing, and our students are finding great jobs that are relevant.
Thanks, and you mentioned that really good, strong pipeline of legal talent that comes out of universities, and I mean, the School of Law at Queen's has always had a really good reputation for teaching quality and research. I even graduated from it at one stage. I'm not sure whether that helps or hinders them, their reputation. But you know, in the past, we created a lot of law graduates, but didn't transform them into a lot of lawyers. And Herbert Smith Freehills are one of a number of firms who've come, global firms who've come to London and have been able, or come from London and Chicago and elsewhere, come to Belfast and have been able to absorb some of that legal talent and create opportunity. So, you know, again, how you know, you mentioned it, maybe you talk a little bit more about it, just how Belfast, because of that strong talent coming out of the university, it's become a magnet for what's now a pretty strong and fast emerging sector in the city.
No, absolutely. Simon, I graduated from Queen's a very long time ago and went to the Institute of Professional Legal Studies here in Belfast. And it was a very different picture back then as to what it is now. Let's just say that I have a 12-year-old son, and I would now not be discouraging him to move toward a career in law in Northern Ireland, but I may have been less enthusiastic way back when I qualified. So it is a very, very different picture. And I've had the benefit of kind of seeing that during the course of my career. And I have benefited from having the opportunity to get a job in a global law firm, which has just given me, you know, a kind of opened up a huge amount of variety in terms of the types of things that I can do. So there is a lot more choice, given the inward investment of global law firms, the national law firms as well. And we've seen an influx in you know, the last 10 years, and also the accountancy firms with legal arms, and also actually corporate setting up in-house legal and technology teams here in Belfast, like BT. So, and from our perspective, it's been really interesting. I mean, when we first opened in 2011, I think we had 90-something applications for our first 15 roles. And today we are finding it increasingly difficult to attract legal talent toward us. We do retain them. We're very good at doing that, but it's the attraction piece that is becoming more and more difficult. So that's a really, really good news story for our homegrown talent from our universities, but it is becoming a bit more difficult for legal employers. It's really so it's really important for us to be building those relationships with the universities and making sure that our employees have, you know, really good kind of career pathways, you know, exposure to the community, committees and networks, diversity and inclusion, and building that really, really good culture for them.
Thanks, Lynn. I'm going to turn to Marie now, and Marie Doyle is a director at Deloitte, which is maybe actually I'll start off, Marie, by talking about, many of us will know Deloitte as an accountancy firm primarily. It's now very different, changed business, much more technology based, a lot less sort of debits and credits nowadays, a lot more tech focused. But how have the skills that Queen's and Ulster are producing, particularly in IT and technology and digital skills, how is that helping firms like yours in that transformation that you're making? Because it's not just that Deloitte, lots of businesses are now having to think pretty fast about becoming tech businesses.
Absolutely. Morning, Simon, and morning, everyone, and thanks to Ian and Paul for that overview, and to Lynn for sharing the Herbert Smith Freehill story. I think for us in Deloitte, you're absolutely right. People possibly still see us as a big audit accountancy firm. We do that, we still do that, but that is very much in the minority of what we now do as a firm. In Belfast, we are a 1,000-person business now. We invested as a UK firm, invested significantly in Northern Ireland and in Belfast over the last 10 years. And it is absolutely key that talent was critical to that investment decision, and having University of Ulster and having Queen's on our doorstep and having the talent pool that we have in Northern Ireland was absolutely the key decision point for our senior leadership across the UK and coming to Belfast. And, you know, I'm absolutely open about that. We looked at, as a firm, we looked at venues across the UK and beyond, and they chose Belfast, and they chose it for talent. We do a lot of work in the technology and digital space. We have teams who work in automation, who work in cyber, who work in software development. And those are skills that are new. And I'm always fascinated by statistics around the future of work. And, you know, Lynn reflected her own experience coming through Queen's. I came through Queen's as well. It's a very different jobs market. But it's different. And even for my kids, I tell them, you know, kids, you don't know what jobs are going to be out there when you're actually going into the market. You know, work is changing so much. Automation is changing how we work as a society, as an industry, and the jobs need to move with that. And I think, you know, Ian talked about partnership. For us, it's all about partnership. And Paul talked about skills being the engine of our economic growth in Northern Ireland. Absolutely. You know, we absolutely need skills to grow. And I think for us in Deloitte, we pioneered some fairly innovative talent models in partnership with the local universities to try and drive our own growth. I think often we rely on government and we say, oh, government, what are you going to do to deal with the challenges we have? But actually, we just got on with it ourselves. We had shared outcomes that we needed. We needed good talent, good people to come through to grow our business, and the universities had the capability to support us with that. So, I mean, one of the innovations that we pioneered was our Bright Start programme, where we took school leavers and we created a partnership with the University of Ulster for a degree programme on a part-time basis, and those school leavers worked with us Monday to Thursday. That's been an absolutely fabulous programme. The talent that we've enjoyed through that programme has been phenomenal, and that has changed our business fundamentally. So, you know, there's been great success in the partnership and collaboration that we have already enjoyed, and I think it's so exciting looking at the investment from University of Ulster in the centre of Belfast, looking at what both universities are doing in relation to research and development, and in particular the endeavours around the Belfast City Region Growth Deal. So I think it's just a brilliant opportunity for all of us to lean into this and see how we can become part of this Belfast as a university city.
I'm really glad you mentioned the Bright Start team, and Paul talked about some of those. You know, how do we bring in people into an upskill or better educate those who, you know, from who have been, you know, historically harder to reach, and that's an alternative pathway. And it really is a question on what from the whole think tank Pivotal has asked about, you know, how do we orientate the skills that are coming out of our universities for the jobs that we're needing. And you're right, like, who knows what the jobs will be in 10 years time, but you know, there is that. I think it was an interesting point you made about not knocking government out of the conversation completely, but you know, there is a much stronger relationship now between industry and academia, which is just trying to get, whether it's degree courses or alternative pathways or research reading, there's that direct relationship is probably a lot stronger now than it has been.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the dichotomy between organisations has eroded and needs to erode further. We need to work collaboratively. You know, there's no point in business lambasting education for not providing the skills that business need. Business need to collaborate with higher and further education, and indeed primary and post-primary education, to bring through the skills that business need to grow. And I think a very valid point earlier on made, what is the skills that Northern Ireland need? Who are we as a society? Who are we as an economy? Where are those sectors that are going to be the sectors of the future? How do we shape the curriculum around those skills to bring through those skills? And I think phenomenal progress has been made, and we saw that in the presentations this morning from Queen's and UU around how they've pivoted, what they do, and the skills that they're bringing out into the market to align with the opportunities and the growth sectors that we have now in Northern Ireland. Yeah,
and I think that's really strong what you said earlier. So Belfast equals talent, and you're something people forget, that even within a firm like Deloitte, you're competing with your bases in other parts of the UK and Ireland and elsewhere, but you're able to point at two strong universities, good strong relationship, and that then helps to not only increase that workforce of 1,000, which is a huge number compared to even just a number of years ago for the firm, but also, you know, that then obviously helps in making those decisions to develop a new office, which is right in the heart of the city centre and not that far off opening as well.
Indeed. We are looking forward to telling a similar story to what Paul has told around our own office development in Bedford Street and Bedford Square. Really exciting office development, really exciting for us as a firm to cement our investment, quite literally cement our investment in the city of Belfast. And, you know, it couldn't, and we would never have done that if it wasn't for talent. You know, absolutely, quality of life, the tax system we have, all of those are factors in investment decisions by firms in Northern Ireland, but the absolute number one priority for anyone making an investment in Belfast is access to talent.
Brilliant. Thanks, Maria. I really appreciate that. I might come back to you again before at the end for some of the questions. If anybody has any questions, please put them into the Q&A box. And that last comment leads maybe a question for Paul. And Paul, you talked about the new campus attracting a cluster of regeneration in the immediate area, and you know, you just have to be down there in any city. I know some people haven't been about the city just as much over the last year or so, but you just have to be down there just to see not just what's nearly finishing at the university itself, but just what's happening around it. There's not just the new campus, lots of purpose-built student accommodation, small villages of student accommodation. There's also student accommodation down towards Queen's as well happening. And it's one of the things, we've got a diverse membership in Belfast Chamber, and some will have seen the news yesterday that Castle Court is reorientating some of its old Debenham space to leisure, and there's no coincidence that they're doing that with the university and all of those students coming in. So there are huge benefits, not just for firms like Deloitte or Herbert Smith Freehills, but for retailers, hospitality as well, with having so many students now in the heart of the city on a regular basis.
Sure, and I think that there's always a fundamental intention of coming into this space in terms of the catalytic effect that would have and the multipliers out into the economy. And of course, it's not one-sided. The university also benefits from having all of those services for students and staff on the doorstep. So since this campus has been open here, you know, I come in and you're able to go out for lunch into a restaurant in Belfast if you want to, you know, and come Christmas, I'm sure I'll be going to do my shopping, and our students and staff that are here will have all those benefits of those services. So although those businesses will look at the university and think, okay, we've got more customers here for our businesses, we've got services on our doorstep, and that's absolutely fundamental to the reason why we've come into this space from the Jordanstown space, is to access all of the services that those businesses provide. So although we've been here today and we've been pushing the value of the university to the economy, that wider economy and the businesses absolutely add value into the university proposition. It would be naive not to say that.
Yeah, thanks. And Ian, you've experience in working in Manchester, which is a much bigger city than Belfast, but you know, has gone through sort of similar transformation in recent decades, and you know, maybe you give us some of your experience in that. But you also also talked about, and you used the phrase earlier on around industrial change and driving industrial change, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about that as well, because we have had a great industrial heritage in Belfast, but the world has moved on somewhat, and we are trying to, and we are already seeing positive change in our economy. But that collaboration, that partnership between government, industry, business itself, and then working together. I mean, again, drawing on your experience from elsewhere, how important is it that you have that working together to achieve that industrial change, rather than people trying to do it separately and perhaps tripping each other up in the process?
Well, I don't think I can overstate just how important that civic partnership is between the large players within any city. If you've got a single message, whether you're going to government or investors, it's really, really strong, and it's very important, and it delivers a lot. So I think the fact that we're now working together, whether it's in Innovation City Belfast or groupings like this, we can make a real difference. But that sense of togetherness is important. Now, in places like Manchester, and I believe Belfast, these are places to be now. People can see they're changing. You can see the centre of Belfast repopulating, just as happened in Manchester. And while we're at an earlier stage, it's really important to continue to see that change happening. Now, in the chat, there's a couple of questions from Anne Watt about what we can do to retain and attract more students. And that's a worry, to be honest, because we're capped in the number of Northern Ireland students that we can accept into Ulster and Queen's. And Queen's is completely full with its Mazen. I think Paul can talk about UU, but they also have challenges because they also have to operate on 3 campuses, or 3 to be soon, I think, as Paul highlighted. So we're capped in how many people we can retain, and we pretty much max out in that as far as possible. So what we have to do is think about how we work with government to increase the numbers we might take, because it's capped by the executive, or how do we attract people in from GB? And that's where we have to work together, because places like Scotland attract in far more students than they lose. They've got something like an 18% net gain in their higher education numbers every year, mostly from England and Northern Ireland. We have a big net loss. I think Anne's put the numbers in the chat, but we have a very big net loss. And could we start reducing that net loss and making it more attractive to people from outside? So from our perspective, we think we've got to sell Belfast, sell Queen's on a national and a global stage. We're not a Northern Ireland university. What we are offering is a global university experience based in Northern Ireland, and we can compete with any other universities across this island, I believe. And collectively, the educational offer we've got in Northern Ireland, I think, is superb if we were to market it together. We've got 2 universities that are largely complementary. Where there is overlap, it's appropriate and it's exciting and it's good for competition. But there's great opportunities across the FE sector too. So if groupings like this can sell the message that Belfast is the place to be and attract people in, becoming a magnet like Manchester, like London, like Edinburgh indeed, I think we can continue to see the type of growth that you've discussed.
Thanks, Ian. And I think that's the numbers that I saw, is 17,500 leave here, only 3,500 come from GB. And I think that's a really great phrase, that Belfast has become a place to be, and it's about exploiting that, if that's the right word. And Lee Meyer from City, a huge investor in Belfast, is asking about how we showcase our progress, how we showcase that success. And I think that's a good point that you're making, Ian, that we are incredibly successful with a high quality product. It's a much more diverse and inclusive society now as well. It is a place to be. And I suppose the question just for both of you is that ability to absorb those sorts of, so if the funding situation was sorted in some satisfactory way, that ability to absorb somewhere close to those sorts of numbers, if there's a reorientation in those numbers, that's there now with what's happened in terms of the new campus, what's happened at Queen's, and also suppose, Paul, developments in your campuses elsewhere in the region too.
Sure, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think we can absolutely accommodate more capacity, and university planning systems have been set up for some years to utilise the dynamism and respond to dynamism within that marketplace. But it is the case that when we say marketplace, it isn't really a marketplace, because it's a controlled market, and there are ramifications that come for that going forwards. And I think I'd perhaps just do a bit of a call out for the business stakeholders that are here. There does need to be a proper conversation about the funding model in Northern Ireland, and that funding model has to be a sophisticated one. Unfortunately, whenever you start talking about it, the devils are absolutely in the detail, and when you start talking about the detail, people glaze over. But we have to find a way to get into that detail and to ensure that there's an interface between the public conversation, which will drive voting behaviour, and then that will actually in turn change policy behaviour. But to just keep it kind of in this simplistic form that something happens, we have to get into the detail of that. Ulster's been working with SIB in terms of a position paper in relation to that, and want to work towards having better conversations about the ramifications for the funding model for the businesses of Northern Ireland, and indeed for the wider community and society of Northern Ireland. And I think if there is one message that businesses can say to those politicians, would be, how are you going to have sophisticated, necessary conversations to unlock the potential of Northern Ireland for the growth potential that it has for the people of Northern Ireland? And don't let politicians lock it down to simplistic sound bites. There are devils in the detail that have got to be engaged with.
Absolutely, just watch out for those politicians and the sound bites. Whilst we're having this conversation amongst ourselves and amongst people within business who are much more sympathetic, I think it is to what you're saying. I think what is useful in this conversation is it is arming those who are listening with some arguments. This is not just about growing the size of our universities and making them bigger and bigger and bigger. This has wider beneficial impacts to lots of different sectors, our wider economy, the whole region. And I think that's the sort of arguments that we're trying to make to get a resolution to exactly that subject. If I can bring maybe Marie and Lynn in, and I don't back in again, I don't want to maybe sound negative, but both of you touched on the need and the imperative of getting skills and talent and perhaps a little bit of a tightening in some of that. And obviously it's a huge state of flux going on in the wider economy. We're seeing that in Belfast as well at the minute. But a resolution to, I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of a resolution to university funding, but that creation of more talent in the city, if we retain talent as well as trying to attract more in, and we've got better than that, Ian had some great numbers in terms of international students at Queen's, that has got to then help when you're competing internally and you're competing globally. That has got to be hugely helpful in terms of growing your presence here and being able to bring more business. And perhaps you could also talk maybe about your firm's ability to as you've grown, to attract people maybe from here who've gone elsewhere and bring them back to Belfast as well. Marie, do you want to maybe start?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, in some ways, Northern Ireland has been and is a victim of its own success in relation to foreign direct investment and economic growth. We find ourselves competing for the same talent pool with companies like ourselves who have invested in Northern Ireland, and we see quite frankly quite a lot of wage inflation happening at the minute, with people seeing opportunities and moving around. So that is not a sustainable position for business or indeed for economic prosperity in Northern Ireland. So we need to increase the pot really, and increase the skills base that we have, particularly in high growth areas as we see in our business in digital and technology. There is a job of work to be done around bringing and repatriating people who have moved out of Northern Ireland, and very positively we've seen a good news story on that over the last 18 months with COVID ways of working. We have seen people reach out to us and say, I've been away somewhere and actually quality of life looks quite good back in Northern Ireland, and I would quite like to come and work for a big multinational based in Northern Ireland. So we are seeing a bit of that, but it's not of a scale that's going to, change the dial quite rapidly overnight. So we are going to have to work with our education providers in Northern Ireland, with our universities and others, to really make sure that the talent we are bringing out is absolutely aligned to the growth sectors as we see them, and to, you know, to Anne's point, to retain that talent that unfortunately we are losing. And, you know, I'm very wary of saying that. Young people, for a variety of reasons, want to go off and travel the world, and I think we should always encourage them to do that. But we are going to have to retain, or, you know, bring back more talent if we are going to grow in the way that we want to in Northern Ireland.
Thanks, Marie. And Lynn, have you seen that similar search of people wanting to come back? The fact that you are part of a massive, one of the biggest law firms in London, but a huge presence now in Belfast, that must be acting as a draw back home for many.
Yeah, I think overall what we have observed is that the growth in the legal sector has been kind of so sudden, almost exponential, that the talent pool is not keeping up. We have observed, and yes, we have had returners, which is fantastic. So we have quite senior lawyers who have forged the early parts of their careers elsewhere in the UK, are now coming back to Belfast to work with a global law firm, because we have that presence in Northern Ireland for many reasons. As you know, Marie has pointed to, like, you know, great way of life, affordable housing, all the rest of it, family back here. But I think we need to do more to be able to kind of attract more back. In terms of another interesting observation, I think from us, is that given that we are now trying to build a kind of legal technology and e-discovery team in Belfast, which we are developing kind of in step with what our clients need. So our part of the business is delivering law in quite an efficient way, and it's powered by technology. We have been unable to find that tech talent in Belfast. So we are growing our own. So that team was formerly exclusively based in London, and we're building one now in Belfast, but we are having to grow our own because the talent, we're just not finding it in Belfast. So that's, I think, something that we need to do more about. So we need that type of kind of capability to be coming through, and to entice those individuals with that talent coming out of Northern Ireland to stay here. So yeah, I think there's a lot more that we can do, but certainly from the perspective of our business, it is a struggle.
Thank you, Lynn. And just one final question then for Ian and Paul, and Brian Morrissey from BT is asked with the city deal, and you know, again, I don't think that it can be understated just how significant the city deal is, and particularly the two universities and those world-class sectors that we're focusing on, laser-like focusing on. So you first, Ian, and then Paul, what are you focusing on the city deal over the next period, particularly as we're trying to, as Brian puts it, jumpstart the economy again post-pandemic?
So the city deal is still not officially signed off. We're expecting it to be finalised in November, all being well. Despite that, we're making very good progress. And as I think I mentioned yesterday, we had a very good meeting with the manufacturing sector, where both UU and Queen's were represented at a meeting with the high value manufacturing catapult from the UK, and with the National Composite Centre, who are based in Bristol, how we work together to support big firms and small, the likes of Spirit were there in Force, for example. And I think that partnership, which is what this exemplifies, is the key. So it's partnership working, continuing to drive on, pushing that knowledge economy and making a real difference. And we do have to address the brain drain, as it were, because without that, I do worry that this knowledge economy development will stall. You've seen the expansion that Deloitte have described with 1,000 people. That's continuing, but we can't provide that talent base from within Northern Ireland with our existing graduate numbers unless we expand. So we do have a difficult message for government. One of the key barriers has been to make sure that we keep education accessible to all. And I think both Paul and I would agree that we would be prioritising widening participation to make sure that there is good social mobility, and anyone with the ability to come to university can do so in Northern Ireland.
Thanks, Ian. Paul, final word to you.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just pick up on that point that Ian made there with a fairly startling statistic and where we're going. We've currently just gone through the nadir of school leavers wanting to go into higher education, and we'll go up and expand all the way up to 28, 29, where I think some 4,000 additional students would want to be in the sector. As we are at the moment, a student who gets 3 Cs has a 15% chance of getting into a university in Northern Ireland, a Northern Ireland student. They have a 55% chance of getting into a university over the water. That skews that, and as those numbers go within the system, we'll see increasing pressures. So the skills pipeline has to run in parallel with the city deals, and we've always seen those two things going together. In relation to the specific question of Brian's about what are we doing in the interim, Ian's right that the city deals are on a, not yet signed off yet, and will go on. But of course, they are in existing areas of expertise for the university, and we're not just waiting for the city deals. We continue to be experts in creative industries, in health tech, in advanced manufacturing, and indeed we're always collaborating together on other streams of funding in the interim, which only strengthens the city deals proposition. So I wouldn't want anybody to think that nothing's happening in those areas until the city deals are signed off. The city deals are in those areas for a reason. They're existing strengths of the university, and we continue to avail of all of the opportunities, and we continue to build our capacity in that area. And so they're not static; they are dynamic.
Thank you, Paul. I think that the big takeaways here, for the big words coming out of this today, are talent and collaboration and partnership, and I think the clear evidence of partnership, not just between business and industry, but also between the two universities, is really, really encouraging for us at Belfast Chamber. We're encouraged that and happy to help in developing that further. I think the other thing I remember from today is Ian's Belfast as a place to be, and whether that's for world-class research and innovation, or the production of talent, or developing a career, or just a good night out, or for Paul's Christmas shopping, Belfast is a great place to be. Can I just finally then thank Ian and Paul and Lynn and Marie for their time this morning and for their insights and their presentations. It was really, really enjoyable, as well as being hugely informative. So thank you for this morning, and thank you for everything that you're doing to advance our city and region's economy. Can also thank Joanne and Dolores and the team at the Chief Executives Club at Queen's for helping support us in pulling this together. Thank you for all of their assistance. I thank Neil and the team at Planned Events for helping things to run so smoothly as well. And finally, just thank all of you for attending. We will be distributing a video of this, so you can watch it again, or you can share it with colleagues who you might think might be interested in what has been said today. Please go to our website, belfastchamber.com, and you can see some of our future upcoming events as well, and register for those online. Thank you once again, everybody. I look forward to seeing you all again at another Belfast Chamber event very soon. Thank you.
Thanks.